Throughout history, certain places have been marked by strange occurrences. But there's one type of place that becomes even more mysterious when night falls: late-night restaurants. Behind closed doors, where chefs work tirelessly into the night, and the few remaining customers seek solace in their meal, something much darker might be lurking. But what happens when the lights flicker, the air grows colder, and the silence takes on a life of its own? What shadows move just outside our sight? Tonight, we explore stories that happen in these very places, where the ordinary meets the terrifying and where fear is always waiting. Story 1. The Chef and the Ghost of the Abandoned Restaurant. In a small, quaint town stood a restaurant famous for its home-cooked meals. The building, however, was older than anyone cared to admit. The chef, an experienced and meticulous man, often stayed after hours, refining his recipes, rearranging ingredients, or just preparing for the next day's rush. But there was something unsettling about the building, something that made him stay just a little longer each night. One evening, while adjusting the kitchen lights, he heard a scraping sound from one of the tables in the far corner. It was faint, but he couldn't ignore it. Assuming it was the wind pushing against a loose window, he walked over. To his shock, the table, usually set for 4, was now covered with an empty plate and a half-full glass of wine. Yet, the chair at the table was rocking back and forth. He paused, a sense of dread creeping over him, but quickly dismissed it as fatigue. That was until the temperature in the room suddenly dropped, and he saw his breath fogging in the cold air. Then, the whispering started. At first, it was so soft he couldn't make out the words, but as it grew louder, it became clear. "Don't ignore me." The voice was unmistakable. It was the voice of his long-dead mentor, the man who had taught him everything he knew about cooking. The chef's heart pounded as he turned to face the empty room, but no one was there. The next night, as he worked alone, a chilling presence pressed against him. Every utensil, every pot, seemed to vibrate with an unseen force. He caught glimpses of fleeting shadows in the corners of his eyes, and for the first time, he felt the overwhelming need to leave. But it was too late. As the clock struck midnight, he vanished without a trace. The kitchen was found untouched the next morning, but the faintest scent of his mentor's perfume still lingered in the air. And now, they say, the kitchen is still haunted, and if you listen closely, you might hear the sound of utensils clinking or a voice calling your name. Story 2. The Waiter and the Mysterious Woman. In a bustling city, there stood a high-end restaurant where the food was art and the service was impeccable. Late one evening, as the staff was preparing to close, a woman entered through the heavy wooden doors, the bell above chiming softly. It was well past the dinner rush, and the quiet of the restaurant felt oppressive. The waiter, a young man new to the city, noticed the woman immediately. She was elegantly dressed, her eyes hidden behind large sunglasses. Despite the darkness of the night, her presence seemed to draw all attention, but no one dared approach her, as if they all understood something unsaid. The waiter approached her hesitantly, and with a soft, almost robotic voice, she ordered meal, a rare delicacy only served to VIPs. The waiter felt uneasy, but he obeyed, his hands trembling slightly as he placed the order with the kitchen. When he returned with her plate, she was staring into the distance, her gaze fixed on an empty chair at the table. "Are you waiting for someone?" he asked, his voice shaking. She slowly turned to him, her lips curling into a strange, almost knowing smile. "I'm not waiting for anyone," she said coldly, "but I'm sure you will be soon." The waiter was taken aback by her words, his heart racing. But when he returned to check on her later, she was gone, as if she had never been there at all. Her plate was untouched, except for a delicate forkful of salad left behind, yet there was no sign of her leaving. It was as if she had simply disappeared into thin air. But when the waiter went to clear the table, he found a folded napkin with a note inside, written in elegant script. "You'll know the truth when the time is right, but it will be too late." The message sent a chill down his spine, and he quickly ran to the manager to ask if anyone knew her. The manager, pale as a ghost, simply shook his head. "That woman hasn't dined here in years." Story 3. The Last Order of the Missing Customer. In a small roadside restaurant open 24/7, known for its greasy comfort food, strange things were afoot. Customers had always commented on the odd atmosphere, something about the place that made it feel off. The flickering neon sign outside only added to the eerie vibe, especially as the night dragged on and the streets grew emptier. One night, an older man walked in. He was gaunt, with deep-set eyes, and his clothes seemed out of place. An old jacket, weathered shoes, and a tired expression. He sat down at the corner booth and ordered a simple meal, a burger and fries. Nothing unusual at first. The waitress, exhausted after a long shift, served him a meal with a polite smile. But as she checked on him later, the scene had changed. The man was still sitting there, unmoving, his hands clasped tightly around his drink. He hadn't taken a bite of his food, nor had he shown any interest in the world around him. She asked if he was okay, but he only stared at her, unblinking. "I'm waiting," he muttered softly. "For what?" she asked, confused. He didn't answer. As the night grew darker, the manager became increasingly worried. When the waitress went to check on him again, the man had vanished. No one saw him leave, and the meal remained untouched. But there was something strange about the fries. Each one was crushed, as if someone had deliberately squeezed them. On the plate was a folded napkin with a note. "It's not the food that keeps you here. It's the shadows." The manager, now trembling, checked the security footage. But all that was visible were dark figures passing through the restaurant. Nothing of the man, nothing at all. The police were called, but no missing person report existed for him. The only clue left behind was a cold plate of fries, forever uncrushed by the stranger who never was. The restaurant, once a beacon of comfort, is now said to be haunted by that same man, waiting for someone, anyone, who will understand his message. Late-night restaurants are more than just places of food. They are often filled with stories, whispers, and events that don't make sense until you look a little deeper. The line between the living and the dead blurs in the darkness, and sometimes what's left behind isn't just a meal. What do you think happens when the lights go out and the night settles in? Could it be something as simple as coincidence? Or is there something much more sinister happening just under the surface? Tell us your thoughts, and maybe you'll find yourself wondering what might be lurking in your favorite late-night spot when you're not looking.